justice. I know what it feels like to be mugged in the streets, to be raided in one's home, and my heart goes out to escape justice. I know what it feels like to be mugged in the streets, to be raided in one's home, and my heart goes out to those whose lives have been shattered when their loved ones are killed, injured, and traumatized as a result of violent crime. We all want and need protection for our families, dignity for our communities. We need enforcement, better enforcement from government institutions that need to work more effectively. We must continue to work hard and together to improve the well-being of our people, hold our leaders to account, as well as the Minister of Police and the police service. It is also important to remember that many people turn to crime where there is a lack of opportunity, excessive consumption of alcohol, exposure to dangerous drugs that are sold by gangs who recruit young people into a life of crime. So as we address the causes of crime, we should understand that crime and violence is always unacceptable. So government departments in the social clusters also have an important responsibilities, as well as provincial and local government. We must invest in initiatives to ensure that our children are well fed, that our youth have opportunities, so that we can prevent crime. However, there are those who turn to crime out of greed and a lust for power and wealth, set up criminal structures to steal public funds needed to provide services to our people, who bring drugs and weapons into our communities. Thank you. Combating gang violence requires effective, no-compromise policing, effective investigation, and prosecution. We must ensure that the gang lords pay for the harm they do to our society and the future of our country. In this address, I want to focus on three critical priorities for the ministry. First, tackling organized crime effectively, including gang violence. Second, professionalizing the police service. And third, accelerating the implementation of the integrated crime and monitoring the implementation of this strategy on a monthly basis. I can say that while we do not yet see the progress that is necessary, there is some evidence that we are beginning to make progress. I'm in constant conversation with the provincial commissioner, particularly in the Western Cape, Commissioner Patakile. I have regular discussions with the National Commissioner, the Deputy National Commissioner Musikili, who's here today. And I can say that in the Western Cape, prosecutors are now working with detectives on actual case dockets. I think that's a positive development. I can also say that the community structures and leaders that have surfaced in part through my engagements with communities when I visited the Western Cape are now working closely with the provincial commissioner, with the provincial government. I will be visiting the Western Cape in the new year to engage specifically with all the governmental actors, with communities, with the police, and I've had engagements with all the station commissioners, and I will also be engaging with the Premier Alan Winde, because the alignment of our efforts across the spheres of government, national, provincial and local, will also be critical if we're going to see results in the fight against the gangs, and I see that they are now exacting their toll, particularly in areas of Gauteng, Westbury, and so forth. So I'm sure there will be questions about gang violence when the time arises for engagements with yourselves. My second priority is to focus on professionalizing the police service. It speaks to the concerns we have in our society about political interference, about the abuse of political power, which has had a harmful effect on the functioning of a police service in this country. We need a professional police service which acts outside of the political process without fear or favor. Professionalizing policing is the foundation of public safety. When the police act with integrity, competence, and respect for the law, communities can feel safe, and victims and whistleblowers gain the confidence to report on crime. So whistleblower protection has to be part of our focus going forward, and I know that the Department of Justice is finalizing legislation in this regard, which should be introduced. But, Deputy Minister Nel might speak to this matter in the new year. Conversely, when policing is inconsistent, corrupt or abusive, public fear grows, cooperation fails, and crime thrives. There must be no doubt in the minds of our people that those who steer the South African police service are people of unquestionable integrity. The allegations that have caused the President to appoint the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry are deeply concerning to all of us. However, it is important to note that these allegations relate to a small number of people, and that they do not mean that all senior officers are implicated. So we should have a balanced, thoughtful assessment of what is happening in the country in order to respond effectively. Most of the 187,000 employees of the South African Police Service are people like you and I. They are trying to do the best that they can under the most difficult conditions, and of course the police service, the policemen and women work under extraordinary conditions, face danger every day. So we are taking steps to reset. I'm positive that both the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc commission, parliamentary inquiry, are going to help us establish a public record, a consensus in our society about what needs to be done going forward, what I have called a reset, and I think that that should be the focus. I know that's hard sometimes as we are so alarmed by the shameful behavior that is on public display but this is a necessary process. It will, in the end, yield the information, produce the information we need to move forward. We are strengthening the South African Police Service internally. We are now partnering with the private sector. There's an initiative that the President established, the JICC, the Joint Initiative on Combating Crime and Corruption, which is making a contribution to the fight against crime. And I also want to thank Business Against Crime South Africa and Business Leadership South Africa for their support for a project to modernize police stations, which I'm very excited about, but at this stage it's just in a pilot phase. I'm hoping that we can roll out this project across the country, as well as their contribution to initiatives to strengthen border security. Public trust can only be restored when there is no doubt about the integrity of the men and women in blue. Unfortunately, far too many honest officers are let down by colleagues who use their powers to enrich themselves. But there are also positive signs. Take the example of the officer who's employed in the DPCI, investigating the Tembisa matter, who refused a 100,000 rand bribe. Reported yesterday, I believe. So I want to take this opportunity to appreciate the approach of that officer. He sets an example for all our police officers, and it does demonstrate that there are people of integrity in the South African Police Service. We must also remember that many of our police officers are attacked in the line of duty. 41 members of the police service in the last 6 months were killed. 35 of them were killed while off duty. This demonstrates the vulnerability that they experience even when they are not in uniform, perhaps especially when they are not in uniform. We must and we will do more to deal with the challenge of improving the safety of our officers. Priority 3 is the implementation of this integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. So we must focus on prevention. All of us here know what conditions in the communities that we have grown up in generate crime, provide a context for crime to take root. So prevention is important. The strategy which was developed by the Civilian Secretariat, Dr. Sibuye might want to take questions on that matter. If core priorities: promoting early childhood development, reducing gender-based violence. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Creating challenge have always been in the area of like to be mugged in the streets, to be raided in one's home. And my heart goes out to those whose lives have been shattered when their loved ones are killed, injured, and traumatized as a result of violent crime. We all want and need protection for our families, dignity for our communities. We need that need to work more effectively. We must continue to work hard and together to improve the well-being of our people, hold our leaders to account, as well as the Minister of Police and the Police Service. It is also important to remember that many people turn to crime where there is a lack of opportunity, excessive consumption of alcohol, exposure to dangerous drugs that are sold by gangs who recruit young people into a life of crime. So as we address the causes of crime, we should understand that crime and violence is always unacceptable. So government departments in the social clusters also have an important responsibilities, as well as provincial and local government. We must invest in initiatives to ensure that our children are well fed, that our youth have opportunities, so that we can prevent crime. However, there are those who turn to crime out of greed and a lust for power and wealth, set up criminal structures to steal public funds needed to provide services to our people, who bring drugs and weapons into our communities. Thank you. Combating gang violence requires effective, no-compromise policing, effective investigation, and prosecution. We must ensure that the gang lords pay for the harm they do to our society and the future of our country. In this address, I want to focus on three critical priorities for the ministry. First, tackling organized crime effectively, including gang violence. Second, professionalizing the police service. And third, accelerating the implementation of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, because both prevention and enforcement are important. So first, with respect to organized crime. Organized crime is a direct threat to the safety of our people, to the growth of our economy, to the prosperity of our country, and is a threat to our national security. Criminal networks fuel violence, entrench corruption, and weaken our democratic institutions. Organized crime undermines investment, prevents job creation. The scourge of drugs devastates communities and the future prospects of our young people. Kidnappings, vehicle hijackings, gang violence, and cash-in-transit heists have an immediate and terrifying effect on communities and small businesses. Criminal networks infiltrate political parties, government departments, and procurement systems to steal public funds. These criminals, as we have seen recently, wear fancy suits and designer clothes, pretending that they are legitimate business people. This is why the Madlanga and Commission and the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Inquiry are so important for the future of criminal justice in our country. They are currently looking into allegations of criminal networks influencing elected political leaders along with the top ranks of the South African Police Service and their networks. We have seen the damage that state capture has done to our country and its institutions, and we now know that capture continues in different forms. An example is the large-scale theft of funds from the Gauteng Health Department affecting the Tembisa Hospital. And I worry that this may be the pattern elsewhere. These are the kinds of crimes that do not necessarily show up in the crime statistics, which is why I thought I should focus on such matters today. So tackling organized crime and its associated corruption must be a national priority. We need focused specialist capabilities based on closer collaboration between the police, prosecutors, financial regulators, the South African Revenue Service, and the private sector. We must follow the money and hit the criminals where it hurts, in their pockets. We need fast, effective prosecutions and strong witness protection to turn investigations into convictions. Now, many of you know that shortly after my appointment, I was confronted with the situation in the Western Cape. I have said publicly that we now do have an integrated strategy which is well-resourced to fight the scourge of gang violence in the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal, where this problem is particularly located. I am confident that this is the right strategy. The challenge is going to be with implementation. So the ministry will be monitoring the implementation of this strategy on a monthly basis. I can say that while we do not yet see the progress that is necessary, there is some evidence that we are beginning to make progress. I'm in constant conversation with the provincial commissioner, particularly in the Western Cape, Commissioner Patakile. I have regular discussions with the National Commissioner, the Deputy National Commissioner Musikili, who's here today. And I can say that in the Western Cape, prosecutors are now working with detectives on actual case dockets. I think that's a positive development. I can also say that the community structures and leaders that have surfaced in part through my engagements with communities when I visited the Western Cape are now working closely with the provincial commissioner, with the provincial government. I will be visiting the Western Cape in the new year to engage specifically with all the governmental actors, with communities, with the police, and I've had engagements with all the station commissioners, and I will also be engaging with the Premier Alan Winde, because the alignment of our efforts across the spheres of government, national, provincial and local, will also be critical if we're going to see results in the fight against gangs, and I see that they are now exacting their toll, particularly in areas of Gauteng, Westbury, and so forth. So I'm sure there will be questions about gang violence when the time arises for engagements with yourselves. My second priority is to focus on professionalizing the police service. It speaks to the concerns we have in our society about political interference. about the abuse of political power, which has had a harmful effect on the functioning of a police service in this country. We need a professional police service which acts outside of the political process without fear or favor. Professionalizing policing is the foundation of public safety. When the police act with integrity, competence, and respect for the law, communities can feel safe, and victims and whistleblowers gain the confidence to report on crime. So whistleblower protection has to be part of our focus going forward, and I know that the Department of Justice is finalizing legislation in this regard, which should be introduced. But, Deputy Minister Nel might speak to this matter in the new year. Conversely, when policing is inconsistent, corrupt or abusive, public fear grows, cooperation fails, and crime thrives. There must be no doubt in the minds of our people that those who steer the South African police service are people of unquestionable integrity. The allegations that have caused the President to appoint the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry are deeply concerning to all of us. However, it is important to note that these allegations relate to a small number of people and that they do not mean that all senior officers are implicated. So we should have a balanced, thoughtful assessment of what is happening in the country in order to respond effectively. Most of the 187,000 employees of the South African Police Service are people like you and I. They are trying to do the best that they can under the most difficult conditions. And of course, the police service, the policemen and women work under extraordinary conditions, face danger every day. So we are taking steps to reset. I'm positive that both the Madlanga Commission and the Ad hoc Commission, Parliamentary Inquiry, are going to help us establish a public record, a consensus in our society about what needs to be done going forward, what I have called a reset. And I think that that should be the focus. I know that's hard sometimes as we are so alarmed by the shameful behavior that is on public display. But this is a necessary process. It will, in the end, yield the information, produce the information we need to move forward. We are strengthening the South African Police Service internally. We are now partnering with the private sector. There's an initiative that the President established, the JICC, the Joint Initiative on Combating Crime and Corruption, which is making a contribution to the fight against crime. And I also want to thank Business Against Crime South Africa and Business Leadership South Africa for their support for a project to modernize police stations, which I'm very excited about, but at this stage it's just in a pilot phase. I'm hoping that we can roll out this project across the country, as well as their contribution to initiatives to strengthen border security. Public trust can only be restored when there is no doubt about the integrity of the men and women in blue. Unfortunately, far too many honest officers are let down by colleagues who use their powers to enrich themselves. But there are also positive signs. Take the example of the officer who's employed in the DPCI, investigating the Tembisa matter, who refused a 100,000 Rand bribe. reported yesterday, I believe. So I want to take this opportunity to appreciate the approach of that officer. He sets an example for all our police officers, and it does demonstrate that there are people of integrity in the South African challenge of improving the safety of our officers. Priority 3 is the implementation of this integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. So we must focus on prevention. All of us here know what conditions in the communities that we have grown up in generate crime, provide a context for crime to take root. So prevention is important. The strategy, which was developed by the Civilian Secretariat, Dr. Sibuye might want to take questions on that matter. If core priorities: promoting early childhood development, reducing gender-based violence. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Creating challenge have always been in the area of of this strategy to focus on prevention. Now, gender-based violence, the President has declared this a national crisis. We've implemented important policy initiatives over the last 30 years, but the results are disappointing, because this is a deeply rooted societal problem, and obviously policing is where the implementation failures are. So I want to put a team together that she will lead. She, of course, already works with in the intergovernmental structures that focus on gender violence. She works with other ministers, but I've asked her to lead a team in the South African Police Service to assess where the gaps are and where we can improve. And I can indicate that an amount only last week of an additional amount of 40 million was allocated to victim empowerment, to strengthening our efforts at victim empowerment, and part of her responsibility will be to decide, or at least to recommend, how those funds should be utilized. Then, with respect to firearms, access to firearms is, all the evidence shows, is a key to identifying stockpiles of illegal weapons, but a lot more needs to be done. We must identify the sources, be it the private security companies, state departments, or civilian loss, and close this tap. The guns that are being used to kill young people affected by the gang violence, part of the solution must be to make sure that these guns do not continue to flood our communities. And in that regard, we've had some success, but we are struggling to ensure that these guns, that gangs don't have access to these guns. Alcohol is another precipitating factor. The evidence, again, is clear that there's a strong correlation between access to alcohol and the kinds of crimes that confront our communities. So this is a matter that is going to receive further attention. What we find is that in the provinces, the departments of economic development issue too many licenses in the wrong places, and there are also illegal licenses. And I have to say that until this problem is tackled, we need to tackle this problem of illegal outlets and too many outlets near churches, near schools, in communities. We have to tackle this problem. Rural safety. We have adopted a rural safety strategy. You will receive a report today on the actual stats. The stats are positive with respect to rural safety. It shows that the strategy to implement, to deal with the safety of our communities in rural areas is working. In fact, I'm told that we were recently visited by officials of the Australian government to look at best practice in South Africa, but I'm going to leave the statistical information to the Deputy National Commissioner and the Crime Registrar. So I will say something very briefly about the crime stats over the last 6 months, which is the last 2 quarters. The figures we will share today show that there is some improvement. Overall, during the past 2 quarters, and following on from the last year's stats, we have seen significant declines in most crime categories. Now, I know that given our concerns about crime, that result may come as a surprise, but I can indicate that the way in which stats are compiled in the South African Police Service meets the highest standards for statistical accuracy. So the stats are certainly reliable. Importantly, we are seeing ongoing and significant reductions in serious and violent crime, but at a high level. And one rape, one murder, one assault is, of course, too many. Significantly, murder has started to decrease significantly, particularly over the last 2 years, and that is often a very good indicator of crime trends. If you track the murder rate, it does tell a story about violent crime in general. So there was a period of time, I believe, in the first 15 years or so of our democratic transition, where the murder rate, there was a dramatic decrease, and then it started increasing again, and now we see a decrease, and that gives me some hope. We've also seen double-digit reductions in most forms of robbery. However, there are categories that remain stubbornly high. So sexual offences and gender-based violence, which I've already mentioned, and commercial crime, we are continuing to record increases here, which is a trend over the last 5 years. Much of this is now taking place online, so it's also related to technological change. With the support of the Joint Initiative Against Crime and Corruption, which I mentioned earlier, the GICC, which is a partnership with the private sector, we are looking at ways to strengthen our capacity to fight this kind of digitalized criminality. So while we can take heart from the downward trends in violent crime, we can also say that the overall levels remain very high or unacceptably high. So this is not a time to rest. I want to conclude with this observation. I believe that further progress is possible over time, but it requires persistence and determination. The possibilities for improvement, for progress, depend on the involvement of civil society, on government, civil society, and businesses, communities working together. So please join your community safety forums, policing forums, the Block Watch initiatives. There are a variety of responses in different communities across the country. This is also going to be a focus of the department. I think that we should go back to the original thinking behind the emphasis on community policing and see what improvements need to be made. I recall the Take Charge campaign in Gauteng. We recruited literally thousands of patrollers. They made an exceptional contribution to community safety. I would like to see similar programs rolled out across provinces. And there's room for different initiatives. In the Western Cape, Premier Lindy has taken some initiatives. Here in Gauteng, Premier Lesufi has also sought to respond to the challenges of safety and security in the communities of Gauteng through his own initiative. So my message is that we must and we can build safer communities, but we have to work together, hold our leaders accountable, and keep the faith that a safer, more just South Africa is possible. 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐶𝐞. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the Minister of Police, Mr. Feroz Khatshaliya, placing emphasis on the need to intensify our efforts to tackle organized crime. So he's basically saying we are following the money, we are hitting the criminals where it to also offer a message.
Director, are we
Comfortable?
I'm fine.
Is it on?
Is it on? Okay. Program Director, Minister Khatshaliya, Deputy Minister Boshielo, Deputy National Commissioner Motsikedi, and other members of the leadership of the South African Police Service, members of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, fellow South Africans. I would like to start by conveying the very warm regards of Minister Mamoloko Kubai, who's the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, but also the co-chairperson of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster. She's attending a special Create Safer Communities. They provide evidence-based insights into crime trends, hotspots, and emerging threats. And a careful analysis of these statistics allows us, not only the police, but the entire Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, to allocate resources more effectively, to design targeted, combined interventions that address the root causes of crime, and I think also very importantly, to assess the effectiveness of our interventions. And so in a very real sense, these crime statistics function as a compass, as a guide, guiding our collective efforts to fight crime and build safer communities. Our presence here today emphasizes that as a Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, we are committed to unity in action, to fight crime, to build safer communities, to strengthen the integrated criminal justice system, and to advance a victim-centered, effective justice system. But we're not only together in boardrooms and at media briefings. As Minister 𝐾𝐨𝐬 indicated, as a JCPS cluster, we are hitting the ground in a unified and a coordinated way. Minister 𝐾𝐨𝐬, together with Minister Kubai, have led joint JCPS interventions around gender-based violence in provinces such as Limpopo and the Eastern Cape. I've had the good fortune of going together with Minister 𝐾𝐨𝐬 and Deputy Ministers Boshielo and Matale on the ground to look at issues of violence, gang violence in the communities of the Western Cape, and also for us as Justice, the very important issue of ensuring that our courts are safe and are able to function in conditions of safety. And we want to thank Minister 𝐾𝐨𝐬 for the alacrity with which he responded to calls by the judiciary and in particular the Judge President of the Western Cape to meet at that high level to discuss court security, but I think even more importantly, for the very prompt action that flowed out of that meeting, manifesting itself in much higher levels of visible policing around our courts. We also worked very, very closely in crafting anti-gang and organized crime strategies, which at an appropriate time, I'm sure that the Minister of Police will say more about. But I think slowly but surely the impact of those interventions are already starting to be felt. We are convinced that only through collaboration can we achieve meaningful and lasting results for the people of South Africa. As a Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, we are responsible for, amongst others, ultimate responsibility for the National Prosecuting Authority. We are pushing very, very hard that members of the South African Police Service, detectives in particular, are working much closer with prosecutors so that we can investigate in ways that bring about case-ready prosecutions at a much faster and much more effective rate. Secondly, promoting an integrated justice system through better systems and also technological interventions. Thirdly, legislative and policy work such also referred to, we hope very soon to be introducing of our anti-corruption busting architecture and institutions as recommended by the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, which was chaired by Minister 𝐾𝐾𝐨𝐬 in a different capacity. We're also supporting the judiciary to ensure that our courts deliver justice that is swift, fair and accessible, expanding and maintaining sexual offences courts, to support survivors and ensure accountability, to support the judiciary in reducing case backlogs that delay justice and undermine the credibility of our justice system, and working together with the police to ensure security, safety and security at our courts so that justice can be done and seen to be done without fear, favour or prejudice. But these statistics enable us as a Department of Justice, Crime Prevention and Security, and also other sister departments within the cluster, such as correctional services, such as home affairs, and also social development, to plan and to act with much greater precision. And therefore, in welcoming the release of these statistics, we give our unwavering commitment that we will continue to work
Thank you, Deputy Minister Nel, for that message of support. I'm now going to call upon the Crime Registrar, Major.
The numbers that he was referring to covered both quarter 1 and quarter 2. So statistics, which covers the period from July to September. And one thing that I would also like to indicate is that there's some issues about the stats being delayed, etc. But what we would like to inform members of the public and the media is that in terms of the prescripts for a statistical release, of which the reference period is a 3-month period, the prescribed period in which those statistics should be released to the public is usually 8 weeks. And if you look at the reference period that we are covering now for Q2 crime statistics, the reference period is July to September. So releasing them on the 8th week, we are still within the prescripts of the South African Statistical Quality Assessment Framework. With regard to the Q1 crime statistics, of course, there were issues. We normally, when we present the crime statistics in the past, we would extract extortion incidents from kidnapping related or kidnapping cases. But then we felt that we normally don't get the full scope of extortion cases. The Technology Management Section Division or Division of the South African Police Service have therefore developed a crime code from which extortion can be extracted. So from this release going forward, we will no longer be covering extortion under kidnapping, but we will have a specific crime code that covers extortion as a I also would urge you that you should note when we decide based on statistical consideration that a particular crime type is no longer of concern or is no longer covering the larger population, and therefore we will no longer be including it in the crime statistics. Understand that that decision, what to include and what to exclude, should only be informed by statistical considerations. With that out of the way, I think the minister, and as he was presenting, he was already playing my slides. So I don't know at which point to start the presentation, but I think I had already prepared that. It's not moving. It's not, okay. Oh, there's a delay. I will start at this table, which gives a summary of the crimes that have been reported and brought to the attention of the police within this particular reference period. The layout of this table, I think most of you should be familiar with. We give a 5-year trend where we compare the same period within the previous comparable period. So we don't compare January to March with April to June, etc., etc. And the reason for that is that, like many other variables, crime has also an element of seasonality. So if you're going to compare January to March and April to June, you will introduce elements of seasonality, and that will not necessarily lend itself to comparison. So that's why we are comparing the same period from one financial year to the next financial year. Again, I will only focus on the count difference because that gives you an indication of the direction of change in terms of a particular crime. The green color code indicates that that particular crime code is on the decrease, and the red color code indicates that that particular crime type is on the increase. That is for the 17 community-reported crimes. However, when you consider the crimes detected as a result of police action, the desired trajectory of change is to have more and more people being arrested for crimes like abuse and use of alcohol and drugs, etc. So the desired trajectory of change for those particular crimes is that they should be increasing. I think that lays the background in terms of how we will proceed from here. We start with the murder. The current Q2, we have recorded 751 less murders compared to the previous period. In the previous period, we had 6,545. Currently, we are at 5,794. And the percentage reduction is 11.5. We then recorded increase in terms of the sexual offense, 22 counts more from the previously recorded 12,765 to the current 12,787. That is a 0.2% increase. Then attempted murder, we have also recorded an increase of 194 counts more. That is from 7,061 to 7,255, a 2.7% increase. Then assault, GBH, we have recorded a reduction of 743. Common assault, we have recorded an increase of 331. Common robbery, we have recorded a reduction of 363. And robbery with aggravating circumstances, we have recorded the reduction of 3,689 counts less compared to the previous comparable period, and the sum total of the contact crimes, we have recorded a reduction of 4,999. Now going to the breakdown of the sexual offenses, which we have already indicated that we have recorded 22 counts more, we look into the constituent crimes that make up this category of sexual offenses. They are made up of rape, sexual assault, attempted sexual offenses, and contact sexual offenses. And of these 4 crimes that make up the total sexual offenses, we have recorded decreases in terms of the rapes, 32 counts, 37 counts less, and sexual assault, 12 counts less. We then recorded increases in terms of attempted sexual offenses, 50 counts more, and contact sexual offenses, 21 counts more. Then moving on to the next category, which is the subcategory of robbery with aggravating circumstances, we have already indicated that that category has decreased by 3,689 counts. So the constituent crimes that make up this broad category of robbery with aggravating circumstances is carjacking, robbery residential, robbery non-residential, robberies of cash in transit, bank robberies, and truck hijacking. However, the 3 that I started with, which is your carjacking, robbery at residential and non-residential premises, based on the victims of crimes survey that has indicated that these are the most feared crimes, we have decided to give them a category and call them the trio crimes. And for the trio crimes, as I've indicated, we have recorded decreases across all the 3 crimes that make up the trio crimes. For carjacking, we had a reduction of 669, robbery at residential premises, a reduction of 864, robbery at non-residential premises, a decrease of 829, and the sum total of the trio crimes reduced by 2,362. Robberies of cash in transit, we have recorded a reduction of 16 counts. We did not have any bank robberies for the past 3 quarters of the second quarter. Hence, the number there is 0 and indicated as in a blue color code. Then we also had a reduction of 39 counts for truck hijackings. Then on the next slide, we have what are called contact-related crimes, which are made up of arson and malicious damage to property. We have recorded decreases in these two crimes, that is 61 and 870, and the sum total of the reduction for contact-related crimes is 931. For property-related crimes, we have recorded decreases across all the 5 crimes that make up the property-related crimes. Burglary at non-residential premises, a reduction of 1,721. Burglary at residential premises, a reduction of 3,407. Theft of motor vehicle and motorcycle, a reduction of 871. Another reduction of 2,027 for theft out of motor vehicle, and stock theft also observed a reduction of 429. And the sum total of the reduction for property-related crimes is 8,455. The last but one category is the other serious crimes, that is made up of all theft not mentioned elsewhere, commercial crime and shoplifting. Of the 3, only commercial crimes has recorded an increase of 948, and all theft not mentioned elsewhere reduced by 4,364, and shoplifting also reduced by 793, for a total reduction of the other serious crimes of 4,209. Then the reduction for the 17 community reported crimes is 18,594. Then for the crime detected as a result of police action, we have recorded increases, as I've indicated, that the desired trajectory of change for the crime detected as a result of police action is an increase. We have recorded increases across 3 of the 4 crimes that attempt crime detected as a result of police action. More firearms were retrieved from the illegal hands, 14 counts more. We also had more drugs that have been confiscated, 9,214. Driving under the crime detected that we recorded a decrease was sexual offenses. Now I will go on to the constituent crimes that make up these particular table. We will start with the contact crimes. I will only focus on the provinces that had recorded increases for the particular crime type. When we take into consideration the contact crimes, which are made up of your murder, sexual offenses, etc., and then doing a provincial comparison of the 9 provinces, we only had recorded increases in 2 provinces, which is the province of the Northern Cape with 146 counts, and the Western Cape. Previous slide, the contact crimes reduced by 4,999. And one of the things that we have also added, but we've been adding it for some time, is the last column, the last row at the table there. We also look at the percentage contribution of a particular province to the total of the particular crime category. When you look at contact crimes, the province that is contributing the most to the contact crime is the province of Gauteng, which contributes 26.4%, followed by the province of the Western Cape with 18%. KwaZulu-Natal is number 3 with 17.4%, and the Eastern Cape at number 4 with 10.6%. Then for the top stations, in terms of the contact crime, I will only touch on the top 5 stations. The top 5 stations for the contact crimes are made up of only 2 provinces, that is your Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. And 4 of the top 5 stations are in the province of the Western Cape, and only 1 from the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And these are, number 1, maybe explaining the table. On the first column, we have the position of that particular station when we take into consideration the total number of stations in the country. In the second column, we only look at the particular station's position when we take into consideration stations within that particular province. As one can see, you can observe that Mfuleni is number 1, both at the national and also at the provincial. And the way in which we order them in a descending order, meaning that the highest station or the station with the highest number of crimes for that particular crime will be the highest, and then followed by the second highest, etc. We have Mfuleni at number 1, which is in the Western Cape. Number 2 is Nyanga, again in the Western Cape. Delft is at number 3, again in the Western Cape. And Inanda at number 4, which is in KwaZulu-Natal. And the 5th station that is Kraaifontein, which is also in the Western Cape. Then we look at the provincial comparison in terms of the murder and also for the months that make up this particular quarter, that is your July, August, and September. As you can see just above the table, there are the green bars there. That indicates that that particular crime type within the month of July, we have recorded a decrease. So we have recorded decrease across all the months that make up this quarter, that is July, August, and September. And in terms of the provinces that have recorded increases, we again have the Western Cape and the Northern Cape that have recorded increases, that is 97 and 1 respectively. All the other 7 provinces have recorded decreases. Then on this slide, in the previous slide, we just took the raw numbers for the murders that have been reported in the Republic of South Africa, but we also have an understanding that different provinces have different populations. So in order for one to be able to compare apples to apples, we need to bring into consideration the population of those particular provinces. And we use the mid-year population estimates that have been obtained from Stats SA. So when we do the per capita in terms of the murder, we see that the Eastern and the Western Cape are closer together, whereby we have both in the region of 15 murders per 100,000. KwaZulu-Natal is at number 3 with 10 murders per 100,000. Gauteng is at number 4 with 8 murders per 100,000. And the province with the least per capita murder is the province of Limpopo with 3 per 100,000. Then this is just on the next slide, we have a graphical representation of the trend that we have shown in the previous slide. And the table at the bottom left, it just gives you the population figures and also the ratios. And the color coding of the maps is guided by the intensity, or the higher the murder rate. So you can see that the coastal provinces, which is your Western, Eastern, and KwaZulu-Natal, are mostly the provinces where most of these murders are happening. And as I've already indicated, Limpopo, which is the lightest of all the provinces, is the province with the least per capita murder of 3 per 100,000. Then the next slide, we look at the top 5 murder stations. These are made up of top 3 stations are in the province of the Western Cape again. Number 1 is Mfuleni, number 2 is Kraaifontein, number 3 is Delft. Then you have GP at number 4, which is in Gauteng, and then Gugulethu at number 5, which is again in the Western Cape. So 4 of the top 5 murder stations are in the province of the Western Cape, and this time the trend is disturbed by the province of the inclusion of the province of Gauteng, whereas in the previous slide it was the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Then we drew a sample which is representative to try and look into what are the causative factors of the murders that we are observing. We drew a sample of 5,200 270, and then when we looked into the causative factors that had been indicated leading up to the murders, we observed that 956 of the murders were attributable to arguments, misunderstanding, road rage, and provocation. 328 of the murders happened during a robbery, and we also have 315 of the murders that were indicated to be gang-related. And the bulk of those gang-related murders were indicated to have occurred in the province of the Western Cape. That is 293 of the 315 murders that have been indicated to be gang-related. Then the fourth column from the bottom, we also have what is called law enforcement and security guards that were killed in the line of duty, that is 27. And when you add the 23 police officers that were killed, that sum easily comes to 50 personnel that is involved in law enforcement that had been killed within a period of 3 months. We also have 15 murders that were rape-related and 13 that were illicit mining related. Then we also looked from the same sample size, where are these murders occurring? We found that 2,790 of these murders happened at public places, 1,659 happened at the residence of the perpetrator, 196 happened at a place where liquor is being sold, that is your shebeen, tavern, bottle store, etc. 83 happened at business premises, 80 at spaza shops, and we also have 12 murders that have taken place at educational institutions, that is your universities, schools, college, and daycare centers. Then we also looked at the phenomena of multiple murders. This would be whereby one incident will result in many people being killed. We see that there was an incident in the province of Gauteng where 11 people were killed at once. And we also have the Western Cape has the number of double, triple murders above all the provinces. We have 2 murders in one incident in 76 incidents in the Western Cape, 20 where 3 people were killed in one sitting, and then 4 again where the 4 people were killed. So in the Western Cape, we had 228 victims that were killed in multiple murder incidents, and these resulted in 100 dockets. This is just the elaboration of where these 11 victims were killed. It was in the Mahalis, whereby it was a possible illegal mining related. The 6 murders happened at a tavern killing, and this incident, which was in Olivenhout-Bosch, also resulted in 8 attempted murders. We also have 5 victims that were killed in Cullinan. It was a taxi related because the people were accused of stealing taxis. They were taken to Cullinan, then killed, assault and killed, and then set alight in a taxi. Now, we then look at the weapon of choice in the commission of these murders. And again, I want to caution that this does not imply that there is a one-to-one correlation between the number of bodies and the firearm. With this, just indicate incidents where people were killed with a firearm. It does not necessarily imply that there were 2,447 firearms that were used to kill 2,447 people. Firearms were used in 2,447 of the murders, knives in 781 incidents, sharp instruments in 450, blunt instruments in 219, and somebody would ask, what are body parts? We mean fist, kicking, and whatever body part a person can use to be able to inflict harm on another person. It's not like a person would take a person's heart and then beat the other person with. It's not anything like that. Then we have stone bricks that were used in 94 of the murders. Then we move on to the murders of police officials. In the current quarter, we had 23 police officers that were killed. That is 5 counts more compared to the previous comparable period. And of these 23 police officers that were killed, 19 were killed while they were off duty, and 4 were killed while they were on duty. Then we also looked at the murders on rural communities. What we observe in the rural communities is that we had 12 murders that met the definition of attack on rural communities. And the breakdown of these murders, or the profile of the people that were killed, was 4 incidents where employees were killed. 6 of the people that were killed were residents on the farm, and 1 farmer was killed. And in the other incident, the status of the person who passed on was not specified. Then moving on to the rapes, we had 4 provinces that have recorded increases in terms of the rape, and these are the Eastern Cape with 109 counts more compared to the previous period. The second highest was in Mpumalanga with 59 counts more compared to the previous period, 49 at Limpopo, and then the Northern Cape with 22 counts. Then similarly to the murder, we did the per capita for the rapes, and again the Eastern Cape is the highest province with the province with the highest per capita rape, followed by the Free State. These are almost at 23, 24 per 100,000 of the people that are raped. Then the Northern Cape is at number 3 with 20 rapes per 100,000. Then on the next slide, we look at the graphical representation of the same information. Again, we would have the rapes and the population, and one would see that the red has now moved from the Western Cape, and it is now sitting at the Eastern and the Free State, and the province with the least per capita rape is now the province of Gauteng with 12 rapes per 100,000. Top stations in terms of the rape, we have the top 5 is Thohoyandou, number 2 is Inanda, number 3 is Plessis Layer, number 4 is Umlazi, and number 5 is Lusikisiki. Those are the stations that make up the top 5 rape stations. Then looking at the place of occurrence of the rapes from the murders, we used a sample of around 5,200. For the rapes, we used a sample of 7,204, and we tried to look into where does these rapes happen. We have observed that 4,562 of these rapes have taken place at the residence of the perpetrator, 1,476 at the public place, 114 have taken place at the educational institution. Then we have 66 rapes that have taken place at liquor outlets. On this slide, we now look at the use and abuse of alcohol and drugs in the commission of mostly social crimes or your contact crimes. We see that 7,358 of these crimes were committed either before the crime was committed, the people were drinking alcohol, meaning that alcohol was involved in one form or another, either before or during the commission of the crime. And then drugs were involved in 237 incidents. Of these, those that were alcohol involved were 259 were murders, 424 attempted murders, 1,278 rapes, and 5,397 assault GBH incidents where alcohol was involved. Then drugs were involved in 137 rapes, 12 attempted murders, and 79 assault GBH. And at the bottom, we now look at confirmed places where alcohol has happened, where these crimes have taken place. 196 of these murders have taken place at places where alcohol is being sold, 350 attempted murders at such facilities, 66 rapes, and 3,995 assault GBH. Then we also looked at the murders and rapes at educational premises. We have 114 rapes that have taken place at educational premises and 12 murders. The breakdown of the rapes is that 69 have taken place at schools, 14 at special schools, and 16 at daycare centers, and 15 at tertiary institutions. The 12 murders almost exclusively took place at the schools, and 2 have taken place at the tertiary institution. Then on this slide, we look at the perpetrator-victim relationship in terms of where the murders happened. It's a three-way table whereby on the first column you look at the type of the school, and then you cross-tabulate the victim and the perpetrator. We see that of the murders that had happened at schools, the victims were learners in 3 incidents, and so were the perpetrators. At tertiary institution, we see that the one incident of murder, the victim was a learner, and so was the perpetrator, and in one incident, the status of the victim was unspecified. Then the rapes, we have seen that 16 have taken place at the daycare center, 69 at schools, 14 at special needs, and 15 at tertiary education facilities. Then for the rapes, I'll just talk of the schools incident. We had 39 learners that were raped at schools, and at the same time, the perpetrators were also learners. And the total number of rapes that had taken place at the educational institutions is 114. Then looking at the domestic violence related, this would be instances whereby there's a kind of a domestic relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, either ex-wife, ex-husband, ex-girlfriend, etc. We had 261 of the murders that had taken place where there was a relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, and of these, 134 victims were female, and 127 of the victims were male. Then we also had 931 incidents of rape, whereby there is that kind of a relationship, and 889 of these rapes, the victim was a female, and then in 42 incidents, the victim was a male. Then I will move quicker now because we just now at the subcategories of robbery with aggravating circumstances. I will talk to the provinces that have recorded increases only. For carjacking, we have the province of the Northwest that has recorded an increase. The others have recorded a decrease. Then on the next slide, we look at the robbery at residential premises. The province of the Northwest is the only one that has recorded an increase, and the other provinces recorded decreases. Then robbery at non-residential premises, 2 provinces that have recorded increases is the Free State and the Northern Cape, increases of 12 and 13 respectively. Then robberies of cash in transit of the 9 provinces, 2 have recorded increases, and the Northern Cape had the same numbers as in the previous comparable period. Then when we look at the modus operandi of the cash in transit robberies, we see that we had 24 incidents. Of these 24 incidents, 14 happened while the armored vehicle was on the road, and this was in the province of KwaZulu-Natal with 4 counts, Gauteng with 3 counts, the Eastern Cape and Free State with 2 counts each. For cross pavements, we had 9 incidents, and this was in the Western Cape, 3 counts, 2 counts in Eastern and KwaZulu-Natal. Then we also saw that the method by which the armored vehicle was stopped, it was shot at and then subsequently bombed. And then in the other incident, it was bumped into and then subsequently bombed. Then we had 3 provinces that had recorded increases in terms of truck hijacking. That is your Free State, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga, and the increases are 1, 2, and 4 respectively. Then we had the kidnapping. In the past, I indicated that we used to extract the kidnapping or the extortion from the kidnapping, but this time around, we decided to look at the kidnapping on its own and then subsequently also look at the extortion as an independent crime, because there's a crime code that has been developed for that purpose. So we no longer have to determine extortion from kidnapping cases. We see that of the 9 provinces, only 3 recorded decreases. That is your Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and the Western Cape, and all the other provinces have recorded increases in terms of kidnapping. Then we then looked into the details of extortion in the next slide. We tried to look at the types of extortions that were implemented. We see that if you look at the first column, the type of extortions, we looked at the financial extortions, protection rackets, blackmail, other, and then cyber extortion. We observed that 284 counts were financial extortion, and the modus operandi was that people were either hit or assassination related. That is in 70 incidents. Ransom was demanded in 60 incidents. Then we also have misuse of power and corruption in 57 incidents. Then protection rackets, we had 125 counts, whereby of the 68 protection fee was demanded, 33 were taxi related, and then in terms of blackmailing, we had 88 incidents, whereby 84 of these, it's 90, I can't see that properly, I think it's 95. Of the 95, 84 of these, there was a threat to reveal or publish compromising information that would include your photos and the footage. And the breakdown per province is indicated in that particular slide. So for the first time, we have extortion as an independent crime, unlike in the past where we would look for extortion under kidnapping. Then we also look at the type of businesses that were targeted. We see that in 33 incidents, it was taxi related. That includes both your Uber, Bolt, and private vehicles. I think private vehicles would be instances whereby private motorists would offer a hiker lift, and then the members of the taxi association will come, confiscate the car, and demand some form of payment for the release of the car and such incidents. We had 13 that were construction related, and we also have those that happened at the barber shop, beauty parlors, and salons. That is 3 incidents. So that gives the scope of the extortion that we have not been publishing in the previous quarters. Then we also look at what are the core diversions. This will be incidents which require the presence of the police that are not necessarily the core of policing. This would be instances like guarding of exam papers, matches, football matches, rugby matches, etc. So these are incidents that in some instances take away the police from their core mandate, which is to prevent crime, and now they have to go and be implemented at these facilities. We have 1,282 of these incidents that were termed as peaceful, which required police to be present, and also 555 which were unrest related, which requires the presence of the police. And both peaceful and unrest, the majority or the bulk of those happened in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And this is just a summary of the national crime picture. It will come later. It is a summary of the national crime picture when compared to the provinces. It gives you at a glance how has the national or the country fared in comparison to the 9 provinces, and what was the direction of change for the respective crime. For instance, for the murders, we have indicated that only the Northern and the Western Cape have recorded increases, and we see that on the first row, only Western Cape and the Northern Cape are color-coded red, and the rest of the provinces are color-coded green. And similar with the rest of the other crimes where we do the same comparison. And then on the last slide, we have the QR code, which can then be scanned for one to access the full presentation on the SAPS website, and both quarter 1 and quarter 2 will be made available on that website. And I think that was the last of my slide.
Thank you, General Sekhukhune, for unpacking the second quarter crime stats for us. Colleagues, just a reminder that the first quarter is already uploaded on our website, and I've also shared it on the media groups. I'll now invite Lieutenant General Musikidi just to obviously tell us what police have been doing during this period. So she will cover the period starting from the 1st of April to the 31st of September, and she will highlight the key successes and takedown operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Atlenda Mate. Let me greet amongst us the Minister of Police, Minister Kachalia, the Deputy Ministers, Deputy Minister of Police, Dr. Bushielo, and Deputy Minister Nell, the DG, Police Secretariat, Ndade Sibui, Lieutenant General Nkosi, who's the acting head of the directorate, Lieutenant General Nkhuwa, the acting Deputy National Commissioner for Police Support Services, our entities, Dr. Bila, who is the acting Director of IPID. Let me observe that protocol, but most importantly, members of the media and the fellow South Africans. Greetings this morning. Minister, I come immediately after the good picture, and I'm glad that General Sekhukhune left this slide number 53, which is a reflection of the downward trend that we are seeing on the numbers that he has been presenting earlier. Allow me, Minister, to indicate that in just a few days ago, we have received 3,558 newly trained officers, which is more boots on the ground that we are sure that when we start to have them on the ground, this screen picture will be where we want it to be. We're still not where we want to be, but with these additional resources in the form of human capital, we will push as the department to make sure that they deliver the service. We are in the midst of our safer festive season operations, which are currently in a full swing. It is all hands on deck as men and women in blue are working closely with other law enforcement agencies to continue and clamp the authority of the state in every corner of our country. We have indeed entered a period of heightened police operations to ensure that people of South Africa are and feel safe this festive season. The crime statistics that has just been communicated to ourselves reflects and revealed that the picture that is showing, it shows a relentless fight to keep the people of this country safe. We are not where we want, as I've indicated, in terms of the numbers, but we are surely like to see further reduction of cases reported and detected, as well as a lot more greener graphs indicating a downward trend. This shows that we are going somewhere and we are feeling the difference through our weekly integrated, multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral operations, commonly known as Operation Shanela. I must hasten to reflect as well that Operation Shanela goes hand in glove with other national interventions that we see across the country. The numbers that have just been shared, I'm going to reflect on the inputs of our responses in reflecting how the police operations were undertaken in the period under review. In so far as the arrests are concerned of these numbers that we are seeing, Minister and members of the media, allow me to indicate a notable numbers between these two quarters, wherein from the 1st of April until the 31st of September 2025, we have recorded 413,583 suspects that were arrested. During the same period, 3,442 firearms were seized during the operations. Alcohol remains a cause for concern. Of course, the abuse thereof is one of the driving factors behind a lot of contact crimes. In response to this, police closed and shut down 11,975 unlicensed liquor premises. During these operations, 18,656 suspects were arrested for selling liquor without a valid liquor license. During these operations, the following seizures, confiscations, and recoveries were recorded by the South African Police Service. As I've indicated earlier, of course, working together with other law enforcement agencies and other entities, including the liquor traders. 500 million in cash was confiscated, 5 million in cash was seized, 208 million rands worth of contraband seized, 1,686 stolen or hijacked vehicles were recovered, drugs worth millions ranging from ecstasy, cocaine, and Mandrex were seized. Of the total arrests during this period, majority of arrests that I have reflected on these drugs are persons that were arrested for possessions of drugs. This includes 64,356 suspects arrested in this period. Furthermore, throughout the country, in all 9 provinces, criminals are feeling the full might of the law and do not have anywhere to hide. A breakdown of the key arrests that I will reflect on includes murder and attempt, wherein 7,479 people were arrested or suspects were arrested. Rape and attempted rape, 5,317 suspects were arrested. Dealing in drugs, 8,552 suspects were arrested. This is the hard work throughout the 9 provinces, from Eastern Cape to Western Cape to KwaZulu-Natal, and where we are today, police remain resolute and there is no turning back. Minister, I'm reflecting on these 4 provinces because we know this is where we are focusing and putting a lot of energy as they are high crime or hotspots provinces. With the hard work between ourselves and Department of Justice and Constitutional Development represented by DM-NEL, we managed to bring to book through convictions a total of 7,415 accused who are now serving time in prison, and the breakdown is as follows. People that are serving life sentences is 477, with 111 for murder, and 149 of those are serving sentences for rape. 40 years and more imprisonment, we have 34 accused persons were sentenced, and 22 of those are for murder and 7 are for rape. 84 accused persons were sentenced to between 30 and 39 years of imprisonment. Of the 84, 28 is for murder and 27 is for rape. 614 accused persons were sentenced between 20 to 29 years of imprisonment. Of this total, 238 were convicted for murder and 275 were convicted for rape. The imprisonment of between 10 to 19 years, it's 2,530 people who were sentenced in this period. Of the 2,530, 730 is for murder, 560 were convicted for rape, 131 for house robbery, 138 for robbery with firearm, and 108 for business robbery. Those who were sentenced for the period of imprisonment between 5 and 9 years is a total of 3,676. In this number, 375 were convicted for rape, for murder, 307 for rape, and 154 for armed robberies. We also took time as the cluster and look at gender-based violence and femicide. We had the 90-day blitz, and in this period under review, a total of 1,550 GBVF perpetrators were convicted. In the first quarter, we have seen 652 of these perpetrators that were convicted to time in prison, and this includes 99 who were convicted for life imprisonment, 69 were convicted for a period of 20 years and more, 176 were convicted for a period of 10 to 19 years, and 308 were convicted for a period between 1 and 9 years imprisonment. During the second quarter of this financial year, 898 GBVF perpetrators were also convicted for time, and this includes 132 who received a life imprisonment, 112, 20 years and above, 201 were sentenced to a period of 10 to 19 years, and 443 were sentenced to a period of 1 to 9 years. The first figures that I've provided is for quarter 1, and this is for quarter 2 of this financial year. I will be doing injustice if I'm not giving a breakdown of the highlights that were recorded in different provinces during the period under review. These are noteworthy and major takedown operations, as Brigadier Mati has indicated. In the Western Cape, where we have ongoing gang violence, the Minister have highlighted on this, and also highlighted that we do have numerous interventions in this province and will continue to do so. 722 gangsters were arrested, with 1,565 illegal firearms confiscated in that province. 39,000 rounds of different types of ammunition were also seized, mainly in the Cape Flats, but the numbers reflect the contribution of the entire province of the Western Cape. In Mpumalanga, police seized 7.7 million rands worth of drugs, and a crystal meth drug lab worth 350 million. There was shut down. 5 foreign nationals were arrested, and various drug manufacturing equipment were seized. I earlier made the reflection of the arrests, that we arrested people that were in possession of drugs. Minister, the question that always follows when we provide these figures is, what about the kingpins? What about the drug labs? This reflection of what happened in Mpumalanga is in response for that level 3 to 5 of the organized crime value chain. Still in Mpumalanga, as Mpumalanga is one of the 7 provinces where we have heightened illegal mining operations in the name of Operation 𝐬𝐿𝐵𝐿, we are continuing to clamp down on illegal miners, and police have arrested thousands of illegal immigrants in the mine in Barberton during Operation 𝐬𝐿𝐵𝐿. In Limpopo, police seized 8 million rands worth of dagga and arrested a 27-year-old male. The suspect was found transporting the 42 bags of compressed dagga from Eswatini to Vhembe district in the province. Still in Limpopo, counterfeit goods worth 20 million were seized by the National Counterfeit Team in Beggarsford. In the Northern Cape, police seized 7.5 million rands worth of illicit cigarettes along the Appington border and in Colesberg during period under review. Northern Cape proceeded and arrested and seized abalone worth 1.9 million rands in Datlas during this period, and 5 foreign nationals were arrested. In Gauteng, at least 6 notorious kidnappers, as well as more than 6 cash-in-transit robbers, were fatally wounded during various confrontation with the police. Several kidnapped victims were also rescued through targeted operations. Gauteng police also seized 548 firearms during this period. In Northwest, 9 suspects, including a female believed to be a mine operator and her son, were arrested for murder of 5 security officials near a mining site in Tlatlaganyane. In KwaZulu-Natal, 5 accused persons behind the Umlazi Cleveland hostel mass shooting in June 2023, where 8 people died, were each handed down 8 life sentences and additional 15 years in jail to each of the 5 accused persons. Still in KwaZulu-Natal, police fatally wounded several dangerous suspects who were involved in murders, attempted murders, house robberies, and these were fatally wounded during the altercation and confrontation with the police. In the Eastern Cape, an American pastor was rescued by the police in April 2025 after being abducted at gunpoint from a church in Motherwell. 3 of his kidnappers were shot and killed by police during this rescue mission. In the Free State, 3.5 million rands worth of cat was seized in Bethlehem. A 46-year-old suspect was arrested and charged for dealing in drugs. To the people of South Africa, we will continue to serve you. We will continue to protect without fear or favor. To our members in blue, brown, and otherwise, who will be working tirelessly during this festive season, we thank you for the continued sacrifice, dedication, and commitment to our oath of office. Continue to put more focus and more heightened operations. The provincial commissioners of our 9 provinces will continue to monitor. As I always say, Minister, during this time, very limited of operational members go on leave, just as to make sure that the entire South Africans enjoy their festive season. I hope that one day you will dedicate a festive season for those that cannot enjoy festive season when the rest of us do so. I thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was Lieutenant General Musikiri. I'll now open the floor for questions. I'm sure the media houses have a lot of headlines this weekend. We gave you a mouthful, ne? No questions from the floor? Oh, okay. All right, I'll take that question. Is there a microphone? Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am. My name is Periel Hapuji from the Daily Maverick. What a hopeful presentation there. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask 2 questions. Given that professionalization is a priority, when do you anticipate a leadership reshuffle of the top ranks of the police service? And both of the horror inquiries unfolding at the moment reveal the risk of criminal infiltration at the level of police procurement. Are you going to wait for the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry to be completed, or have you started looking at sealing up the clear holes there? Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Bapedile Mwarani from ENCA. Minister, earlier on you said that implementation remains a problem for you, but people on the ground, particularly the areas of Westbury and Park, those are the areas that you visited and you engaged community leaders there. what they want is to see implementation on the ground. Can you please talk to us about time frames when it gets to dealing with issues that these communities are facing? This is in relation to gangsterism. I know that previously, when we were attending this press briefing, we talk about illegal mining. How are things in terms of illegal mining? I want to focus precisely in the areas of 𝐿 and the Northwest. How are things there? Are we certain and sure that illegal mining has been clamped down in the particular area? And the last question, I just want to check with you, SAPS, in terms of 𝐦𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐬𝐜 kidnapping case. How far is it at this point? Are you able to share details on that?
All right, let's leave it there and then allow the Minister as well as the DNC to respond. Oh, yes, Minister, thank you.
Thanks for the questions, Farrell. So, professionalization is a comprehensive project to think about ethical standards, about how police are recruited, how integrity is managed in the organization, how discipline is enforced. It includes questions about the proper relationship between the ministry and the police management and so forth. So a process like that will produce a leadership that can lead the professionalization agenda. I am not focused on what you call reshuffling, but where it is necessary to take steps to deal with corruption, to enforce discipline, to ensure that professional standards are adhered to, that those steps will be taken. Yes, the evidence before the Madlanga Commission as well as the ad hoc committee confirm, even at this stage before those processes have been concluded, that we are faced with a problem of infiltration by cartels. Now, I don't think that, and of course it includes infiltration of the procurement systems. So I don't think it's appropriate to wait for an undefined period of time for both of those inquiries to be concluded before action is taken. And I can indicate that I have asked my office to look at what reforms are required, what changes are required in the procurement system. I'm in discussion with the National Commissioner on that matter. Obviously, I have to approach this matter with some care because both the Commission and the ad hoc committee are focusing on systemic reform, not just making findings against individuals. So I also don't want to preempt those processes. The questions from the ENCA journalist, sorry, I didn't get your name. Morning. So yes, you're quite right. I visited Westbury and Reiger Park. My impression is that As I've said, I do not think that that this problem is under control as yet. The police are putting in the effort. We do have, as I said, a strategy. Now let me take the comments I made earlier about prosecutors working with the investigators at station level. That's happening. Investigations will take time. Making sure that we have the intelligence information we need to dismantle these gangs will take time to rebuild. Gang violence has deep sociological and historical roots in many communities. And the problem is multidimensional. It's not an accident, I think, that if you take, say, the 13 high gang areas in the Western Cape, when you take Westbury and Recha Park, these are poor communities. They have problems of unemployment, inadequate service delivery. These are patterns that have been entrenched over time. So I think we have a challenge ahead of us. But the assurance that I'm giving you, and I think I've demonstrated over the last few months that I am committed to dealing with gang violence, that we do have a strategy in place. We know what we're doing. The Deputy National Commissioner has given some specific information about arrests of kingpins, about the dismantling of drug laboratories and so forth. But every day we see other murders. Young people are being recruited by well-resourced gang leaders. Young people, by the way, who are not even teenagers, in many cases, who are vulnerable to recruitment because the economic opportunities, alternatives are not available. So there is no quick fix. There is no panacea. There isn't some date, in the next 2 weeks, the next month, the next 6 months, in which this problem will be overcome. The best I can do is to give the assurance that this matter is receiving my best attention. It's receiving attention from the police service, from the criminal justice cluster. A significant amount of money has recently been allocated to the CARA funds. That's in addition to the police budget. I'm not sure it would be right for me to mention the figure. So the problem isn't money anymore. We not only have a strategy, we have a strategy that is to which the government has committed large resources. And by the way, it's not just gang violence. We have identified organized crime as a priority. It's a cabinet decision. And that means that the security cluster now has the ability to influence cabinet decision making, to influence the budget process, to ensure that organized crime receives the attention that is needed. It's not the answer that that you're expecting, perhaps, but it's the best answer that I can give in the circumstances. The illegal mining program, I'll ask the Deputy National Commissioner to speak to, but it's an ongoing program. It hasn't terminated, and it has achieved significant results. But let me ask the General Musikili to add.
Thank you, Minister, and thanks to the members of the media with questions. Indeed, Minister, there is a notable successes that we achieved during the Operation Valumkoti, and I believe that Bafedile Mwerani has been with us most of the time in Stilfontein, to the point that the notorious Stilfontein open shafts have been closed now with the assistance of those that were responsible. I can stand here today strongly emphasizing on the fact that we have achieved that the communities of Stilfontein were complaining about, and both shaft 10 and 11 has now been sealed. As the Minister, you are right to indicate that when we launch operations, we also look at the future of these particular interventions and operations, and when we move or we remove some of the resources that we would have requested from elsewhere, we leave that province capacitated and empowered to continue. We are here sitting with the Deputy National Commissioner responsible for support in that process of ensuring the capacitation. We looked at the illegal mining provinces when the resources were allocated. So of the number that I have indicated that it's more boots on the ground, those illegal mining provinces have received what they should consider capacitating their illegal mining provincial task teams. Minister, the last question from ENCA was on the case of Jerry, which is ongoing case. It is proceeding, and we can indicate that the teams are still following up on every lead and every information, and they are continuously employing the resources that they will require for that particular intervention. So this is an ongoing operation, and it will proceed until we give comfort to the South Africans and to the community. Thank you very much. I think all the difficult one, Minister, have responded. I was left with these two softer ones. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. I can confirm that I haven't issued any instructions to suspend any classes.
Okay, colleagues.
If I get good advice to that effect, I might.
Okay, can we get this is the last round of questions, because I think it's been a very long day. Colleagues, last round. Pizzo?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Brick.
You must wait till the 31st of December.
Yes, proceed.
Thank you so much, Brick. Lieutenant General 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐈, where is Tiger? January, we launched a massive campaign, asking the media and the community members in Stilfontein, but even across the West, the whole country, looking for a fugitive tiger. Where is he? We haven't heard anything for the past 10, 11 months. Thank you.
Next question.
Good morning. Alpha Ramashwara here, a journalist at Eyewitness News. I believe we have a representative from IPID. I want to ask about the 2023 report, which was sent to the city of Ekurhuleni on the alleged unlawful contract between the APD and a company owned by 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐞𝐿. Now that report recommended disciplinary action against Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi for allegedly entering that unlawful contract between EMPD and the city. I want to know, what do you make of the city's reluctance or refusal to implement that recommendation? Mkhwanazi was only suspended 2 weeks ago, but the report came out in 2023. I just want to know your response to that. Thanks.
Okay, next question.
Zola Shalana here from Newsroom Africa. Minister, several areas remain persistent crime hotspots. Now, what I'd like to know is that what targeted interventions are being rolled out to address these high-risk areas, and also how is the SAPS tracking and evaluating the performance of stations and provincial commissioners in high-crime areas? Are there any consequences for consistently underperforming leadership? And the last question will be on the issue of resource allocation, because this is something that we have picked up in many areas that are crime-ridden, such as Westbury and Refa Park. How does the ministry plan to address ongoing issues such as limited manpower, outdated equipment, and lack of vehicles?
That's the last question now.
Thank you very much. My name is Cartel. I work for SAPS News. I have 2 questions. The first one, yesterday we got a complaint from 2 of your members. They are working for the intelligence. They were complaining that they did not get their payments during the 2021 unrest. They were complaining that the other members that are in uniform, they got paid, but unfortunately for them, they did not get their bonuses since they were working overtime. They are saying that they have tried to involve management and the unions, but they are not getting help. My second one is short, is just for the overview of the G20 summit on how you performed. I'm happy, and any complaints or comments on that one. Thank you.
Last question at the back.
We have 2 questions from Paul. Paul is attending the briefing virtually from Bloomberg. This is a question for Minister. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi said in his testimony to the Madama Commission that the Office of the National Commissioner, by virtue of the power it wields, is the target of the organized crime gangs. While the Commission is still to give us its findings, what is being considered to mitigate the vulnerability? The second question is on the increased profile of extortion crimes. Does this mean these crimes are replacing or supplementing crimes like cash in transit, which has shown a sharp decline over the past few years?
Is that all? Okay. Okay, that was the last round, colleagues. We won't be taking any more questions. No. It's been a long day. Sorry. You'll send your written questions via WhatsApp and so on, and we won't be accepting any requests for interviews this evening. So if you want to do interviews with the minister, DNC, deputy ministers, use the opportunity right after this briefing, please. Thank you. Minister and DNC.
We've got the head of IPID here. Do you want to take the IPID question? Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. I think I need to introduce myself. I'm Dr. 𝐿engani Bila, the Acting Executive Director of IPID, with a specific reference to the matter raised insofar as Mr. Julius Mkhwanazi's allegations are concerned. We have, as IPID, investigated the matter, issued an investigation report to that effect. Currently, we will be meeting with the mayor very soon, within 2 weeks, to support the municipality to implement the departmental recommendations by IPID. There is a second leg which talks to the issue of criminality. We are at the last phase of conclusion of our investigation. So basically, IPID has done what it should have done, and we have made recommendations, and of course, we can give 100% assurance that there will be consequence management insofar as the matter is concerned. Thank you, Minister.
They did act in against him. They've taken action against him.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Thank you.
I was just asking because I thought I'd seen a report that 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐻. I want you to not confuse them. That one, I mean, yes, that one, I mean, I'm waiting for action to be taken if it hasn't been taken. I mean, it's shocking. His relationship with Matlala and those blue lights, and I don't know what that fellow was up to. So we want to see action. And of course, the IPID investigation. The IPID investigation must make recommendations for further action, and of course the management and leadership of Ekurhuleni have to deal with this matter. And until we get to a point where there is a response in such cases, we will not get control over this problem of criminal infiltration into law enforcement agencies. Now, the colleague from Newsroom Africa asked all the difficult and important questions. So, if you look at the figures, it's very clear that there are indeed hotspots. The 4 provinces, Eastern Cape, I worry a lot about the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, we have crime everywhere, but those are the 4 provinces. And then the figures show there are about 30 stations where every type of violent crime appears in those top 30 stations. So I have said to police management, and I'm sure they have been doing so to some extent, if we focus on the 4 provinces and those 30 stations, concentrated effort by all the law enforcement agencies, by the NPA, by all 3 tiers of government, then we should indeed, as your question suggests, be able to improve even on this picture. So my point is that it's not the whole country that needs concentrated policing. If we should focus on hotspots, we should target. That's a conversation that I've initiated with police management and with the deputy ministers, because I want to make sure that when we visit a province and we engage with the premier and the mayor and so forth, it's on the basis of this information. We will then look at each station and what needs to be done. Obviously, there are variations from station to station. My point simply is that this idea of hotspots and targeting, I think, must be a strong focus in addition to high visibility. So that's what I want to do. Now, you also raise an important question of how we're tracking performance at station level. And I would link it with the answer I've just given. I think whatever targeted hotspot strategy, and there's a lot of evidence, again, been doing some reading since my appointment, that hotspot strategies work. They've worked even in the parts of the Western Cape. In addition, we need to track performance at station level. Now, I'm not sure that we have aligned our safety strategies with the performance, with the way we assess performance at station level. I don't know the answer to that question at this point, but you're quite right. Your question says that the two, your focus on the hotspot and your performance, the way you assess performance at station level, has to be aligned. That is also something we're looking at. I'm discovering sometimes I've got a thought in my head about what needs to be done, and then I'm informed that the police have actually already done some work, or they've been thinking along those lines, or they're implementing elements of it. And feel free, Deputy Commissioner, to add or correct me where I might be, I might not be giving the accurate response. The issue of resourcing, I want to deal just first with police stations and then with vehicles. Here's the problem with police stations. We have over 1,000, one problem with police stations. We have over 1,000 police stations. It's, I think, in the region of 1,108 and 64, okay, across the country. So what that should tell you is that policing takes place across the country. SAPS is a large national organization. You go to Mfuleni. What is the problem in Mfuleni? One of the top 30 stations. There you've had urbanization, and it's the pattern in fact in a lot of those stations. You have unplanned urbanization. You go to Mfuleni, they don't have, although now they have a police station after my visit. At least that was what was reporting me. When I went there, there was no police station. You have informalization. You have, they don't have enough schools, enough roads, enough street lighting. High crime station. So that tells you that crime also requires a focus from other departments, environmental design, and so forth. The police are building police stations. I had a very pleasant experience of visiting a new police station in Sonskane, the Free State. It's a similar community. It has a new police station, a very dynamic station commissioner, a young man, fantastic facilities. You go to another area and they complain that they don't have a police station, or they have poor infrastructure, poor maintenance, and so forth. So resourcing the physical infrastructure for policing is an area that needs attention. SAPS doesn't build police stations. It is the Department of Public Works. So I have to have a conversation with that department, both about the speed at which they build police stations, whether they have sufficient resources in the budget, and whether they're planning ahead. And I think that there is obviously a weakness there, because you go to Mfuleni, they don't have a police station. It wasn't incorporated in a plan. Okay, I think so. We have an ongoing problem with building police stations as communities are established and they grow. Because sometimes you build one police station for a certain population, and then 5 years later, it's a different community. So I'm just explaining the challenges that we have. With vehicles, I'm aware that we have a lot of vehicles that spend a lot of time in garages, not available for policing because it's perhaps taking too long to refurbish them, to maintain them, and so forth. So that's also a matter that requires attention. I don't have a solution on the problem at this point. G20, I think that what G20 showed the country apart from, how impressive I think the country was in using the opportunity to shape the global agenda, the police did very well. I had several reports on the steps that were being taken to ensure that the event went on without incident. That is what happened. There was rigorous operational planning. Both myself and the other security ministers were involved. I received intelligence reports. So what G20 showed is that the police have capabilities to secure an area, to host international events, and to ensure that safety during this period. Perhaps there's a challenge to try and ensure that, between a World Cup or between G20 and the next event, that the country is able to sustain that level of focus, that level of integration, that level of application, and I think that is going to be a challenge. There was, I think, a question about the Madlanga Commission, and I'm not sure I got the question right. Was the question that there's evidence that the National Commissioner is under attack or infiltrate? Yes, the Commission, has not concluded its work, and I would urge you all, to some extent. I know it's difficult to wait for the Commission to come to conclusions. My responsibility at the moment is to work with the National Commissioner and the team. There's no reason why I have to proceed on the basis of evidence that is being led at yes untested. We have a National Commissioner. He, in my view, is doing a good job. We work very well together. And so, it speaks to Farrell's question as well. I have to work with the incumbent leadership of the police on the basis that these are professionals who deserve to be in the positions that they are, and that they have to enjoy my trust and respect. Were there other questions?
Thank you very much, Minister. I'll be responding to one question on the non-payment of the 2021 overtime. Not at this forum. And I'm saying those two colleagues who raised the issue with you, they are really abusing this platform. And I don't even know those two officials that you're referring to. We're having about 190,000 employees. The two that you're referring to, we don't know. So my message to them is they must come to my office on Monday, bring all the necessary documents, and the matter will be resolved if they were not paid. It's 5 years later, almost. Thank you.
Thank you, General 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐾. The only question is the whereabouts of Tiger. We're still looking for Tiger. Like I said earlier, that operations will be ongoing, will not close a case as long as there are outstanding persons that we're looking for. And I think I did also indicated at the earlier platforms that we also engaged our colleagues on police-to-police bilaterals with our colleagues in Lesotho to be assisting us, and I believe that they are watching today. And if and as and when there is a breakthrough, we will not shy away from coming back and sharing with the communities when we have apprehended a Tiger. I will not talk to the issues that Minister have already alluded to, Kelvin. I think, Minister, you are right that this was not the first event that we were successful with little or no security breach, especially in and around our focus areas. We have quite a number of those. Minister, you will know that we'll have the main event, which is will be called in the issues of Zone A. We'll have accommodation as well. We don't have issues. There are cases that happened outside of our operational areas, and including the protests that we had. And I can attest to the fact that 13 persons were arrested immediately, as we have committed, as we have put before the leadership that will put together the team that will respond, so that when visitors leave the country, those cases were resolved. So 13 people were arrested on various cases, 6 of which were arrested for robbing in and around Sandton, and there was one other person who was arrested for attempted hijacking, who was challenging. Unfortunately for him, he landed in the hands of the police, and they responded immediately, and he was arrested as such. So we have a total of 13 on the various other cases that were reported during that time. On the decline of CIT, I think the intention of putting up measures and systems in place is to see reduction. It will be fruitless for us to implement plans and strategies to respond looking at the trends and patterns, and we are not seeing a decline. Yeah, that is what we have put. There is a priority. We develop and create different priority committees as and when we have challenge, so that we can have relevant resources that we will dedicate for that particular trend and pattern. And that is what we are having. We're still having that team that is working day and night to monitor. And the accountability, Minister, you were very right to say we have identified in our policing strategy for 24-25 and 25-26 that we have escalated the police stations that we are monitoring from 30 to 35, because we have noted that some of these that we are putting focus on that are ranging within that number of 30 police stations, they will in a week or so or a month be number 32, number 33, and back into number 30. So we are focusing on the top 35 police stations, and there are accountability sessions that are held any time of the day, any time of the week. If there is a notable trend through our national crime combating forums, we do a call in these station commanders and or provincial commanders, commissioners to come and account and put measures, as well as identifying some of the areas in the Western Cape. Minister, we zoomed into 13 police stations, but within a month, we realized that we need to increase the stations that we are holding accountable on the issues of Cape Flats, which is a very topical issue on the gangs, to 35. And that was therefore expanded to other 4 provinces, of which Gauteng is one of those. I think earlier there was a question, Bafedile, on the issues of Westbury and others. The teams are still there, and we are looking at capacitating the anti-gang units that were implemented in 2018. I think, Minister, from me, those will be the issues. And the last but not least is what my colleague have reiterated on the issues of the grievance procedures, that colleagues will urge commanders to be available for members and respond to their concerns, to avoid the issues of unresolved matters 5 years down the line. But equally, our colleagues know the procedures within the organization. If we can follow those up to the last level of command, and if that has not happened, only then we can use other platforms. But The appeal is that let us use all the internal processes and see if we cannot resolve matters better within the organization. Thank you, Brigadier Mate.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. We've reached the end of our briefing. Thank you, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, Acting Head, all the DNCs and the Crime Registrar. Thank you, colleagues.
Just for them to explain in short.
Okay, explain.